Business Secretary Jonathan Reynolds with us this morning for the government. Hello to you, sir. Thanks for joining us on the programme. You're here to tell us about new government plans to crack down on late payments that harm small businesses.
I am indeed. You may remember we've talked about this before, and I'm delighted to be able to tell you we're getting on with the job of what we promised. So first of all, we're going to make large companies report in their annual reports as to how promptly they pay their suppliers. We're going to have a new fair payment code with different rankings for incentives to reward people who do pay promptly. And then we're going to launch a consultation to make sure we can then go and implement some of those further changes that we had in our manifesto. But this really is a very substantial issue, particularly for smaller businesses in the UK. Tackling it is a priority. I'm really warmly welcome the response the measures have had so far today, and it's all part of our economic agenda to get the economy growing as we wanted to do so.
£170,000 worth of freebies for the boss, £20,000 in the last 8 weeks alone. Interested to hear your defence.
Well, I would say there are a number of ways supporters support any political party, particularly an opposition political party, and sometimes that's support for campaign literature, sometimes it's support for staffing costs, sometimes it's of more of a personal nature, but I have no objection to that, and we have very clear rules and transparency in place in this area, so I have no objection to how the system works.
2.5 times more than the next nearest MP. He said recently, choices we face are that things will get worse before they get better. He's declared more in the last 2 months on freebies than the average wage.
But this would relate to his job, the professional side of his life, being the leader of the opposition or the Prime Minister. And there's a lot of pressure on that role, there's a lot of scrutiny of that role. Again, there's full transparency in place, so I don't see any objections, and where in some cases it relates to perhaps an event, a sporting event of some kind, of course, I think people would reasonably expect the Prime Minister to be in, say, a director's box at a sporting event if they were there, partly for security, partly because it will be something they, yes, enjoy doing. But again, I have no objections to that.
I'm a massive Arsenal fan. I can't go into the stands because of security reasons. Therefore, if I don't accept a gift of hospitality, I can't go to a game. You could say, well, bad luck. That's why gifts have to be registered. But, you know, never going to an Arsenal game again because I can't accept hospitality is pushing it a bit far. Do you have a violin small enough for that?
Well, I think anyone who's doing a job of the pressure, of the scale, of the importance that the Prime Minister does spends pretty much every bit of their waking life working on it. And if they've got the chance for a little bit of time with family or something that's important to them, in this case, lifelong support for a football team, again, I don't think that's a problem. I don't think people object to that. And I think those are reasonable points that are made there in terms of why and how you would attend doing so. And again, I think we've got a completely open system of transparency in this country, which is the right thing to have.
And it's OK for him to accept tickets to Taylor Swift concerts, Coldplay concerts, that sort of thing?
Well, yes, I think these are major cultural, sporting events. I think it's important people in public life have some connection to that, that they are aware of that. Of course, going to see Taylor Swift, I've never seen her myself, but I hear it's a very significant and lovely experience to do so. But again, as long as those things are declared openly, transparently, in accordance with the rules, there's no objection on my part to that.
And you're very content that you're taking £300 off pensioners while he's freeloading with £170,000 worth of freebies, 2.5 times more than the nearest person to him on the list, and significantly more than even people like Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak.
Well, first of all, I think you're conflating two issues there. The reason we've had to make some tough decisions already in the first 2 months is because there's a big black hole in the public finances. And the only way we have the opportunity to tackle that, to give this country the stability it needs, is because of what Keir Starmer did in changing the Labour Party, winning that election, and giving us a chance to move on from that Tory division and chaos. I don't think that is the same thing, and I know Keir Starmer personally, I know how hard he works. If he's going to a football match or anything to give himself a little bit of a wider life experience than just working every second. Again, I don't have any objections to that as long as it's transparent. But I think to conflate the two issues and forget the fact that there are major issues facing the UK that can only be addressed because we've got a change of government wouldn't be right.
OK, so let me talk about public finances then, may I? £170,000 a year for Sue Gray. Why is she worth it?
Well, first of all, I think it's important people understand that the pay bands for any official, any advisor, are not set by politicians. There's an official process that does that. I don't, for instance, get to set the pay for my own advisors who work directly for me. So there's a process. We don't have political input into that. But on your second part of your question, I would say Sue Gray is getting on with the job of this government, delivering on our promises. I think that's what matters more than anything else for anyone who works in Downing Street, and I can assure you that is exactly what is happening.
The PM apparently intervened personally in order to make sure that she did earn more than she was originally offered. It's been embarrassing when he's previously criticised Dominic Cummings' salary, saying £40,000 per year rise for Dominic Cummings, £3.50 per week for NHS nurses. The mask has slipped.
Well, I would say there's a process that sets these things. It is widely recognised, it's long-standing, it hasn't changed, and that is how pay bands are set for any advisor or official.
How many other civil servants get that sort of money?
I can tell you.
Yeah, OK.
I'm not aware of that. I don't set civil service pay.
No, I'm sure. Explain to me the stunning arrogance of a member of staff who thinks that they should earn more than the boss.
Well, look, this is clearly an important job. I believe
More
the process
important than the Prime Minister?
Sets these pay bands. Well, I think there's a process that sets these pay bands, and it will reflect previous experience, it will reflect the role. But quite honestly, I don't know more about the process than that, other than it is a long-established way of establishing within certain pay bands remuneration relating to the job that you do, and I understand that is what has been followed in this case. You
don't think that it's arrogant to ask and expect to earn more than the boss?
I don't know the specifics of that negotiation. I think it'd be wrong, to be honest, to go into that, even if I was aware of that, but it's a process.
You know the facts? She earns 170 grand, he earns less.
Well, again, I say, I can only tell you there is a process by which these things are done. I know no more, frankly, about the process than that, but it's been followed, and that is what has established the pay remuneration package in this case.
Didn't you tell us that money was so tight that you had no choice but to allow pensioners to freeze? She had an option to turn this down, and she didn't. So you're paying this woman 170 grand a year, more than the Prime Minister, who's getting £170,000 worth of freebies, and you're telling pensioners they can't have 300 quid. Do you at all accept that the optics of that are going to stick in the craw of a lot of people? Come on.
Well, I would say the issue we're talking about, the substantive policy issue, is the fact that the previous government dramatically overspent, didn't account for key items of public expenditure like public sector pay. We've had to mop that up. The only an opportunity the country has to address those issues, or because there has been a change of government. We obviously need a team in place to do that, as long as every normal procedure has been followed and these things have been set in the normal way. I don't have a problem with how that has been put together. But I don't think
in this together. We're not all in this together, are we?
We clearly are in addressing the dreadful inheritance that this government has received. We need, for the stability of the country, to address those issues. There are decisions that have had to have been made already. You mentioned winter fuel, that no one in our position would have wanted to have to do. But there's no point misleading the British public that that isn't the reality. The stability that we need. The stability that we need. We've seen what happens when that is threatened.
It's ridiculous. How can you sit there and defend this nonsense?
Because I know the job that we have got to do, and I've seen in my time as a Member of Parliament what happens when governments don't address tough decisions, when they don't act responsibly with the national finances, and that is what we had with Liz Truss, but we could look back at many points over the last 14 years around that. We have got to do that. There are decisions, I've been quite open about it, we've had to make that ideally no one would want to be in a position to have to make. But let's not be distracted from the fact that that is the reality, and if we want the better future, which I know this government can deliver, we do have to address those things.
Are you really comfortable defending what you've defended this morning?
I am, because it is a process that hasn't changed. It is and we're talking about, to be honest, an official's pay who can't come on the media themselves and defend it. And that is a difficult position.
She can come and sit in the studio this morning if she wants to. Of course she can.
That's the job of politicians like myself, not the people who work for us behind the scenes.
Are the ones who get paid more. OK, it's good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Thank you.
Thanks, Kate.